Want to know more?
At the APEC summit in Peru, leaders pledge further actions on the global economic crisis and renounce trade and investment barriers. President Hu Jintao says APEC's diversity and interdependence helps its members deal with challenges. US President-elect Barack Obama's job creation plan would build roads, improve schools and develop alternative energy. And Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas says Israel's occupation is stalling economic growth. Ni hao and welcome to Worldwide Watch on CCTV International. I'm Edwin Ma in Beijing. Leaders of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation have promised further actions to deal with the global financial crisis. They also agreed not to raise new barriers to investment and trade over the next 12 months. Gui Xiaozhang updates us on the progress of the two-day summit.
During the first day of their summit in the Peruvian capital of Lima, the leaders discussed the impact of the financial crisis and actions by APEC members to restore confidence in their economies and maintain long-term growth. The leaders pledged support for efforts by export credit agencies, international financial institutions, and private banks to ensure adequate financing for businesses, including small and medium-sized enterprises, and to keep trade and investment flowing in the region. They also welcome continued development and innovation in the financial sector and called for more effective regulatory and supervisory tools as financial systems become more complex. The APEC leaders also expressed support for the Washington Declaration adopted at the G20 summit in Washington earlier this month, and the common principles that will guide the action plan for financial markets reform. They reaffirmed their commitment to free and open trade and investment in the Asia-Pacific. A total of 19 leaders from APEC member economies attended the summit. The organization, established in 1989, groups 21 member economies including China, the United States and Australia. Gui Xiaozhang, CCTV.
And at the same meeting, Chinese President Hu Jintao also put forward a three-point proposal for coping with the financial crisis. First, he calls on all countries to enhance macroeconomic policy coordination, employ all necessary fiscal and monetary means to bring stability to the global financial markets and to stimulate economic growth. Second, he calls for reforms to help establish a fair and inclusive international financial order that will be more conducive to global economic development. And third, he's called on the APEC economies to change those models of economic growth that are not sustainable and address their own economies' underlying problems. Hu Jintao says the rich diversity and great interdependence among APEC members allows them to strengthen regional cooperation and jointly respond to challenges. He has also called for more united efforts to ensure the sustained economic development of the Asia-Pacific region. Liu Yanhua has more.
Addressing the APEC Chief Executive Officers Summit, President Hu Jintao said the global financial crisis has spread to all countries. He said it is imperative at this point to step up international cooperation in financial regulation and enhance early warning and regulatory capacities. He urged the international community to learn lessons from this crisis and reform the international financial system.
China will continue to promote the building of a sustainable international economic system, an inclusive and orderly international financial system, a just and equitable international trading regime, and a fair and effective global development system.
Hu Jintao also urged APEC's business community to play an important role in tackling the crisis.
While trying to maximize returns through market operations, enterprises should adopt a responsible attitude, pursue mutual benefits and complementarity, bearing in mind the need to maintain overall economic stability and avoid risks.
On China's future development, Hu Jintao said China will continue to follow the scientific outlook on development by putting people first and making development comprehensive, balanced and sustainable. Liu Yanhua, CCTV.
On the sidelines of the APEC forum, President Hu Jintao also met with his U.S. counterpart George W. Bush on Friday. The two leaders discussed bilateral ties as well as major global and regional issues. Yang Fei has the details.
At the meeting on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, President Hu Jintao said Sino-U.S. relations have made significant headway thanks to concerted efforts from both sides over the last 7 years. Hu praised President Bush for his active efforts in developing the Sino-U.S. relations since taking office and hoped he would continue to play an active role in promoting bilateral ties. He said that Taiwan remains the most important and sensitive issues in Sino-U.S. relations, stressing that one China principle can never change. Bush pledged to continue to help promote the development of bilateral ties. He noted the importance of U.S.-Sino economic and trade relations, urging both sides to make joint efforts to advance the Doha round of talks and take concrete actions to prevent protectionism. Yang Fei, CCTV.
And at the meeting, President Hu Jintao also said the international community should earnestly implement the consensus reached in the G20 summit earlier this month and take effective measures to stabilize the global financial market. He added that China will continue to adopt effective measures to maintain a stable and moderately fast economic growth so as to play a constructive role in helping maintain the stability of the world economy. Well, the APEC CEO Summit came to an end on Saturday with leaders from the Pacific Rim countries calling for freer trade, less protectionism and continuation of the Doha round of talks. Mike Patterson takes a closer look.
At a summit of business leaders from Asia and the Americas, U.S. President George W. Bush praised free markets and free trade. He called on APEC members not to retreat into protectionism as a means to buffer the global financial crisis. Bush says because the economic problems are so widespread, both developed and developing countries must work together to find solutions.
We're witnessing a dramatic shift of history as the center of the world. Economic stage moves from west to east, from the Atlantic to the Pacific. Some view the rise of Asia Pacific with suspicion and fear. America doesn't.
Bush says he'll focus on three forces for economic growth: free markets, free trade, and free people. The plea for freer trade was echoed by several APEC leaders who also spoke at the business meeting. South Korean President Lee Myung-bak denounced protectionism, explaining the damages it can do to an emerging economy. Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper said the North American Free Trade Agreement has tripled trade and created 40 million jobs. And Hong Kong Chief Executive Donald Tsang stressed the Special Administrative Region's unique position.
As the global community is now struggling with the challenges of an economic downturn and protectionist sentiments, a successful conclusion to the Doha round is more important than ever. I am encouraged by the strong commitment from leaders of the G20 summit to call for reaching agreement on modalities within this year, which is crucial to a successful outcome of the Doha round.
Negotiations on concluding the World Trade Organization's Doha round of global trade talks began 7 years ago, but those negotiations have met a number of setbacks that kept the talks from ending successfully. Mike Patterson, CCTV.
This is Worldwide Watch on CCTV International, and coming up, US President-elect Barack Obama unveils an economic recovery plan aimed at creating 2.5 million jobs. And Mahmoud Abbas says obstacles imposed by Israel are hindering economic growth in the Palestinian territories.
Students and their tens of thousands set out, but only the most eloquent few will reach journey's end in Beijing at the CCTV studios. Join us for the exciting climax to China's ultimate test of English. The 2008 CCTV Cup English-speaking contest from November 23rd to the 26th on CCTV International.
US President-elect Barack Obama has outlined his plan to create 2.5 million jobs in coming years. The plan calls for rebuilding roads and bridges, modernizing schools, and developing alternative energy sources. Obama says these measures are not just for the current economic crisis, but for long-term investments.
I have already directed my economic team to come up with an economic recovery plan that will mean 2.5 million more jobs by January of 2011. A plan big enough to meet the challenges we face that I intend to sign soon after taking office. We'll be working out the details in the weeks ahead, but it will be a 2-year, nationwide effort to jumpstart job creation in America and lay the foundation for a strong and growing economy.
The Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas says Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories is hampering the region's economic growth. Abbas wants what he calls obstacles such as Jewish settlements and roadblocks to be removed. Abbas made the comments at the opening session of the Second Palestine Investment Conference, held in the West Bank town of Nablus. The conference is part of an international effort to improve the economy in the Palestinian territories. Over 1,000 people were expected to be in attendance, including Palestinian representatives, Arab investors, and delegates from the International Monetary Fund. At the same conference, Abbas also said Israel will free 250 prisoners before an upcoming Muslim holiday. Meanwhile, residents of the Gaza Strip are suffering a humanitarian crisis, the result of 18 consecutive days of a blockade imposed by Israel. Israel closed border crossings in response to Palestinian rocket attacks. This has caused shortages of energy and materials. Mengling Chi reports.
Bakeries in the Gaza Strip continue to ration bread on Saturday, 2 days after the largest mill suspended operations. Lines formed outside many shops as residents stocked up on staples that have become harder to come by.
Maybe we have flour that might last us 2 or 3 days only. After that, we are going to be doing nothing.
Residents have also been hard hit by blackouts since Israel stopped allowing in industrial fuel for Gaza's sole power plant.
Due to the shortage of natural gas, we had to refer to a new method and found out that firewood is the most appropriate, like in the old days.
The UN and other aid groups say a humanitarian crisis could develop quickly if Israel does not ease border restrictions soon.
The international community must exert pressure on Israel to lift the siege and ease the living on the Palestinian people.
Both Israel and Hamas have signaled they want to restore the Egyptian brokered ceasefire, but Israeli Defense Minister Ehud Barak has ruled out opening the crossings until militants stop cross-border rocket fire, which continued on Thursday. Mengling Chi, CCTV.
In Thailand, security has been strengthened near the parliament in Bangkok in response to a mass demonstration planned for Sunday by the anti-government People's Alliance for Democracy party. The move also comes after assailants attacked protesters from the party on Saturday, killing one and injuring many others. PAD leaders say the mass gathering planned for Sunday is aimed at toppling the so-called proxy government, stopping it from amending the constitution and putting an end to what they refer to as the Thaksin regime. Meanwhile, police officials are urging the demonstrators to refrain from any violence. The 1st Army Regional Commander says the military will be on hand during the rally, but only to monitor the situation. Pakistani television reports that British militant Rashid Rauf is dead after a US missile strike in a north tribal region of Pakistan. Rauf and an Egyptian militant are among 5 people killed when the missile was fired by an unmanned US drone on Saturday. The attack came just 2 days after Pakistan lodged a protest over US missile attacks on its territory. Arrested in Pakistan in August 2006, Rauf was identified as a key figure in a plot to blow up airliners flying from London to the US. Rauf had travelled back to Pakistan in 2002 after a murder case in Britain. Tehran has announced the execution of an Iranian national convicted of spying for Israel. Iranian officials say the spy had turned over important materials, including nuclear information. The 45-year-old electronics salesman worked as a supplier to military, security and defense centers across Iran. He was found guilty of relaying sensitive information to Israeli intelligence officers. A judiciary statement says he had been arrested in 2006 and was hanged earlier this week. Iran has repeatedly denied Israeli accusations that it's seeking to build atomic weapons. It insists its nuclear program is for civilian use. Former UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan says he and his colleagues planning a humanitarian mission in Zimbabwe have been refused entry. Annan and 2 other members of the Elders Group, former US President Jimmy Carter and Nelson Mandela's wife, rights advocate Michelle Grachel, had planned to assess the country's humanitarian needs. Disease and hunger are stalking Zimbabweans, while a political crisis occupies its politicians. Annan told a news conference in Johannesburg that no official reason had been given for the refusal. He says the group will continue its work and try to increase assistance to the Zimbabwean people. This is Worldwide Watch on CCTV International, and after the break. College graduates in China lower their expectations as the global financial crisis impacts the job market. And heavy snow hits Germany, creating icy road conditions that led to fatal car crashes.
Much more to see in Inner Mongolia. the hometown of giant panda.
To Hangzhou, discover the mystery of China.
China's job market is starting to face uncertainties as a direct result of the global financial downturn. As Yu Ying finds out at a campus job fair, many graduates are no longer so optimistic about their immediate prospects.
With anxious and grim looks on their faces, dozens of college students lined up outside a gymnasium at Renmin University, waiting to attend a campus job fair on Saturday. The timing of their graduation is unlucky, coinciding with the worst global economic downturn in decades.
Statistics indicate more than 6.1 million college students will graduate and join the army of job seekers next year. That's 500,000 more than this year. But the global economic downturn has forced some multinational and domestic companies to trim or even cancel recruitment plans. That will certainly make it more difficult for students to find jobs.
Jie Yunsheng has already felt the pinch. The economics graduate student has been to a dozen job fairs so far, but has been disappointed to find slashed recruiting quotas and lower salaries. He has expanded his scope from financial institutions to other sectors, but his prospects are still dim.
I'm really worried about whether I can find a job ahead of the Spring Festival next year. If not, I will have to continue seeking jobs while writing my paper next year. That's a lot of pressure.
Many students have adjusted their salary expectations quite a bit.
Considering the current economic situation, I may need to lower my salary expectations. My previous target was 3,000 to 4,000 yuan per month.
But the English major says 1,000 yuan less a month will be fine with her. More than 30 companies from the southern business hub of Guangzhou gathered at campus job fair on Saturday. They ranged from car makers to government departments. Guangzhou Rural Credit Cooperative, the city's fifth largest bank, plans to recruit up to 200 new graduates this year, similar to last year.
We have attended several job fairs nationwide and have already received some 2,000 applications. Taking into account the number of applications we will eventually receive, I think we will employ about 1 out of every 20 or even 30 applicants.
That's very intense competition for student job seekers. The government promised to help college students find employment by providing consultations, giving guidance and training for job hunting. But for majority of graduates, less jobs and lower salaries are the grim outlook that they will have to confront. Liu Ying, Xu Peng, CCTV, Beijing.
2 people are dead and several others have been injured after heavy snow and ice caused travel chaos on roads in Germany on Friday night and again on Saturday. In Hohenfeld, 2 vehicles crashed on an icy road, killing 2 people. and 5 cars collided within minutes of each other on an icy bridge in Berlin, injuring 5. A low-pressure weather system known as the Amela has caused winds of up to 100 kilometers per hour across parts of north and southwestern Germany. Roofs were blown off buildings and trucks and cars overturned on highways. In the Alps, mountain passes were closed due to the heavy snowfall. The sitar is a classical string instrument from India, and on Friday more than 1,000 sitar maestros gathered under one roof in India's capital New Delhi to perform a grand symphony. Wandu has the details.
The evening chill added to the hair-raising experience of witnessing the Brahma Nod Orchestra, believed to invoke the sounds of a supreme god. Friday's performance left many people spellbound. The event was organized with support from the Art of Living Foundation, led by internationally acclaimed sitar artist Ravi Shankar. The popular spiritual and humanitarian leader put together the event to support Indian classical musicians, suffering as traditional music loses appeal with the younger generation.
Today, we are standing at such a threshold that if we want, we still have the time to save our culture, our age-old sciences and art forms. Today, we can still preserve them. I thank all these musicians and sitar players that they have agreed to perform here. Very few people listen to classical music these days, but they have come here, undeterred, and are not only promoting the art form, but are also providing a source of entertainment to others.
The congregation of 1,200 maestros performing live in a single performance was an experience in itself. But the event also used proceeds for the relief and rehabilitation of flood victims in India's eastern Bihar state. Wandu, CCTV.
They have earned themselves a place in the Guinness Book of Records in the process. Well, let's check out the weather now, and with all the details, Daryl Snow.
Hello, well, looking at China's weather first, today wet weather in the west will ease off. Tibet, Qinghai, Gansu, Shanxi and Chongqing will all see an end to the wet weather as it moves south and eastwards. This means that areas from Shandong and Jiangsu all the way down to the Huanan region here will see rain, although mainly just light in intensity. However, central and eastern Jiangsu can expect moderate strength rain. Also today, the Hubei region here will be quite cloudy, and so temperatures there are expected to fall slightly as well. Hebei, Beijing and Tianjin will all feel daytime temperatures below 10 degrees. Meanwhile, along with the rain stretching from Jiangsu and Anhui to Guizhou, that region will feel day highs below 15 degrees. Tomorrow, rainfall in the south will die down considerably, easing off from Jiangsu through Hunan down into Guangxi. However, it will still fall over southeast coastal areas. Meanwhile, over in the west, wet weather will increase. Eastern Tibet, southern Qinghai, as well as northwestern Sichuan will receive another bout of wet weather. Over to North America now. Today, wet weather will mainly focus on Canada, while the United States will see a large scope of sunny or cloudy weather. This will cause drought conditions in Texas, as well as the southeastern United States. It's a different story tomorrow, though, as wet weather in Canada decreases while expanding over the US. Light rain will cover from the southern Great Lakes area all the way down to southeastern Texas. In addition, today and tomorrow, the southern US will feel a bit warmer by about 2 or 3 degrees, leaving day highs in the region peaking at around 10 degrees. World City forecasts are up next.
And that's it for this edition of Worldwide Watch on CCTV International. I'm Edwin Mara, Beijing, and I'll be back at the top of the hour with our next bulletin. Until then, thanks for your company. 再见.